What is going on, guys? And today we are back, and we are going to be doing something today where we look at some of the hands that I've recently played in some of the 10-20 mixes on Phenom. We've been running pretty salty over the last couple sessions, and we definitely want to go over our sessions and our hand histories when we can to see if we're making big mistakes or if we're just running cold. I think this is one of the most important skills in poker, is when you can recognize when variance is running against you and when you're just starting to play bad. So we're going to look at some hands, and we're going to take some notes and see if we can improve in some of these situations over here. We're going to be using the replayer from Phenom, as you can see over in this spot. We have two other tools we're going to be using. As normal, we're going to be using, I'm going to fix this screen here for you guys a little bit. This is going to be using stud flop draw when the situation arises, and at the same time over here we are going to be using Omaha mate as well. As you can see, we've already got this one loaded up, kind of a preview. But this one right here, we're going to start off with Nathan Gamble. This is an Omaha 8 or better hand. He is going to open the cutoff, and we're going to make what I thought at the time was a really close 3-bet. And this is like the only real interesting part of the hand for the most part. We could have played this hand a couple different ways. The flop comes 9-9-7. We actually decided to check because like there's a lot of 3-bet combos in this board. We do have all the aces, so like theoretically you could probably bet this. We want to check this board sometimes. I think having the 9 in our hand is an okay one to do it with. We bet twice, we get called by kings. So we do win this hand, but the real question here is how is our decision pre-flop to 3-bet him? Because again, like in some of these close decisions, like sometimes it doesn't matter, but if you're really starting to make some like really big errors, I mean, like it can affect you. Now, this is a 6-handed sim. This is not a 4-handed sim, so it does matter slightly in the situation. But looking at it here, we can see that if Nathan raises the cutoff and we go over to the button here, we're barely betting the 3-betting the ace queen 9-4 with the suited ace, and I would have slam dunk even 3-bet the suited queen. So the suited queen here is actually technically a mistake. But given this fact that basically the suited aces in the situation are basically break even, we might be losing something like half of a big blind here by 3-betting this hand. Huge mistake on my part. It's just one of these things you kind of learn from and adjust. And this is why I stress to people frequently to go back, check. If you have access to something like Omaha Mate, go ahead, use their trainer, and just keep working. Now, again, it's not as big a deal in this situation versus like a 6-handed sim, in a 4-handed sim. So we're not losing as much. But yes, like maybe in a situation like this, we go from like losing, I don't know, maybe half of a big bet to maybe like 40% of a big bet, something like that. So still, it's pretty significant. So, pretty big error on my part here. First hand. Yeah. All right, but that was the first one. Let's go find some other ones. All right, this next one here is a stud 8 or better hand. We are going to use stud flop draw to kind of look at the overall equities. And actually, this is a good one to look at because this is a situation that like actually happens at a fair decent bit. So the first thing we're going to do here is let's play this one out. Actually, we'll just pause it. We'll go forward. The deuce is going to bring it in. The 7 is going to fold. It's going to come to us over here with the deuce 3-6, and we're going to open into the field. You can do some limping here. I was playing 3 tables, so like kind of like looking at everything in general, like I probably like a limp a little bit better in this situation just because I have an ace and a deuce behind. So not too big of a deal, I think, but I think mixing some limps and some raises is just totally fine in these spots. So I actually think prefer the limp now. Looking at it, it goes fold over the ace. We get 2-bet, and it does fold over us, and then we call. So the first thing we are going to do here is we do pair 6s, and we're going to bet. I don't think there's anything really to say about that, but I do want to go over to stud flop draw, and let's just start like kind of building our hands in this situation here. If we look back over, we're going to have the 6 of spades, the 6 of hearts, and our opponent here is going to have the ace of spades, jack of, oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. Remove. Let's go to hand 2, ace of spades, jack of spades. And we're going to start with the simulation. Now, in this situation here, we have all our combos, and the first thing we have to do is we have to fix the combos. I would definitely say in our spot as well. Our specific hand is we have the deuce 3 offsuit. So, I put deuce 7 Raz in there. Let me fix it. Give me a sec. All right, now we fix it, and you can see here, given the fact of these boards. So let's start out with our hand, and let's just give ourselves exactly what we have. We have the deuce 3 offsuit combo down here. So basically what we're going to do is we're just going to start by removing the worst combos. That'll help us kind of clean this out in a second. Go back over here for a minute, and then we're going to clean this up. And by the magic of editing, we are able to give us this specific hand. Now, the one thing we're going to also do over here is we're going to clean up the ace-jack range. In the future, you will be able to change this according to the, I think, the Pro Poker Tools ranges as well. The first thing we're going to do here is we're going to just knock off a lot of this range for the most part. And let's see here. Already have the 6-4 suited, I guess. Hold on. And again, by the magic of filtering out, we've kind of filtered what we think his relative ranges here by 3-betting. I think there's going to be a couple more like suited combos in here, maybe like the ace-king, like, you know, deuces, threes, fours combo. It's hard to filter those exact combos at this point, so I think we're going to leave those out. But if we kind of look at the range-on-range dynamic here going into 4th Street, oh, you know, the other thing too, I got to put the dead cards. Give me a sec. And again, we change that up here. And as you can see, we actually become an underdog given the fact of what the dead cards are here. So I make a bet here in this situation on 4th Street. And again, I think it's okay in the moment without really thinking about it. Like, technically, it's probably a small mistake against his range. He probably has some other suited cards in there as well that I'm not accounting for. Not too many. And even if we go back over here in this situation, let's say, like, let's give him, like, maybe the king, like the, you know, I would love to do this, but I don't think we can do it just yet. No, because if you put the king deuce suited in there, basically what you're doing is you're putting in like the king and deuce the diamonds and stuff like that. So the ones where we have the decent ranges, I don't think we can do that just yet. So when we're able to put those in the future, we'll be able to kind of clarify it a little bit more. So it's kind of give us a rough range here. Again, we could probably use something like Pro Poker Tools to give us the exact range, but I think it's just a little bit wide at this point. Using this tool is super helpful in its own right. It's not like we're going to be off like by 10% or anything like that, but we're going to start off and kind of get a look here. So theoretically here, like this could be this could actually be a check here. Now, it's kind of like Raz in some ways. If you're like take the lead with an ace deuce and your opponent catches like 6-7, usually you're still betting in that situation, kind of like even range on range sometimes. But here I think like just betting your hand is totally fine. So we bet and we get called. On the next street here, we catch an ace or we catch the 8 and he catches the 5. And again, if we go back over in this situation, oh, not that we want to go update boards. So we catch the 8 of hearts and he catches the 5 of diamonds. And now we're going to run this one again. And we can see that we're still pushing an equity edge now in this spot as well. So we are going to look at his hand now, given the fact of the dead cards. We bet and we get called. On this next street over here, he's going to catch a 6 and we're going to catch a 9. And again, when we go back and update the boards, nothing much to really do here. We're definitely going to lose the equity lead, no question. Yeah, we're down to 40% and he's down to 61. And then key thing here is going into the river when you're playing stud 8, not to catch bricks like this. Now, the only question here is do you call? And again, kind of given the dynamic of the hand, this is something that you have to kind of figure out a lot too. I think that we have actually a pretty easy call in this situation for what it's worth, but we do want to update the board in this spot and just kind of look at how we're doing when we catch the river card. And as you can see here, we still have 21%. Once we get the bet and looking over at the pot size, we can see that we're definitely getting the right price here to call with 6s. So again, sometimes you just want to like check the overall spots. How do we do? Was my bet on 4th Street good? Probably a little bit close, kind of given the dead cards. But at the same time too, our bet on 5th Street is totally fine. Call on 6 is good, and then call on 7th is also just fine. But again, these are the spots that we want to review. So let's go find another. All right, here, the next one here is a deuce to 7 Raz hand. Pretty simplistic start here. Oop, sorry. Here we go. So what's going to happen here is the queen's going to bring it in. The 10's going to limp with an 8 and a 7 behind, and we're going to open it, and the 7's going to 2-bet. Now, the 7 here is definitely incentivized, I would say, to raise, and raise pretty widely, given not only the dead money, but to knock the 10 out. So that's what he does, and then we call. I would say, too, like, there is a there is an argument here because we know that the 7 is incentivized to knock 10 out to go ahead and like 3-bet our strongest combos as well, or just put a 3-bet in a decent bit. But we like to call in this situation. And again, we're going to let's go back over here and let's start looking at our combos. With our specific hand, we're going to just bunch it down to 3-5, and we're going to filter this one. And then let's go over to our opponent's board over here. And obviously, he's not going to have like his weakest hands, but he's probably going to have a relatively wider range. So I don't think he's going to have the jacks per se, but he's probably going to have the 10s. Oh, let's not do that. Let's do, I don't know, even like 10-9s in the combo there, but 10-7. This probably looks about right to me. Probably all these combos over here, no pairs, I think. I think that's probably a little bit loose. So he's still going to have about 32% of his range in this situation here. And as we can see, we are pushing a decent equity edge against that theoretical range. But at the same time as well, like I don't mind just flat calling on these kind of like close boards on 3rd Street. And just kind of like playing it out from there. And I think your opponent, if we do 2-bet in this situation or 3-bet in this situation, sometimes you do turn your hand over and you lose some value on later streets. But I think at this point, like I have no problem just flat calling as well. So stud 8's a little bit different too, but I don't mind it here in this spot. So next street here, we catch a 9, he catches a jack. Again, we're going to update stud flop draw. It's not going to matter per se. 9 and a jack. Oops. No, we don't catch that jack. And he catches jack. And again, given the fact in this spot that we bet and he calls, we're probably right that there was no jack in that range, or at least not in his hand at this point. So we are going to bet and get called. We catch a jack, he catches a king. Not too much here. Obviously, this is a very clear bet, and we get called. So that's the important part here. Let us go over now and update both streets, because we've had 2 streets go by, but at the same time, too, 5th really didn't matter too much. We go jack of diamonds, jack of spades, and our opponent over here goes king of hearts. Whoops, that's not what I want. I want the, there we go, the king of hearts and the 4 of clubs. So one thing we have to think about a little bit in this situation here is going back to the equity. We can see that for the most part, he's definitely pushing an equity edge because, like, obviously he improves to a better jack against us a fair bit. Now, one thing that we do want to look at is, you know, if he does have the 4 in this situation as well, like, he's probably going to go ahead and bet. We can probably take the 10-4 out in this spot. When he has 0 equity. Just one of the kind of the one situations that we don't mind throwing out. And we can see here, like, let's look at the hands, right? If we look at he's going to have a king here, which means he paired up about 23% of the time. Now, I still think he's probably going to want to do some betting in that situation to look like he has this hand, maybe to get us to fold on a later street. So I think, like, it's fine to mix it up sometimes. Like, he's going to have a jack here more frequently than us, a fair bit, obviously, roughly like 76% of the time. So not surprised here to see the bet by our opponent. And then we go ahead and call on the river. We're trying to make a 9, and on the river here, we've kind of spoiled it a little bit. We do make another 9. So it's kind of a good guard for us as well, because like now our opponent doesn't necessarily have it. We're going to go back here, but we are going to go update our board and our range. And let's do this. And we catch the 9 of spades on the river. And how much equity do we have in this situation at this point? Because basically, yeah, we still have about 22% equity in this situation on this river, even though, like, we've made this jack. Again, it's one of these spots where it's like you kind of feel like you have to grit your teeth and call, because, like, you know, this is under the impression that, like, he paired the 4 and he missed the river. The other thing, too, you have to think about is you have to think about, too, is like, is your opponent here going to bet jack 7 or jack 8 or jack 9? It's definitely possible, and it's probably a very thin bet. But that's just one thing you have to think about, too. Like, I'm not sure if I have jack 7 in his spot, if I'm calling the river or not, or if I'm betting the river or not. So that's one of the reasons that actually kind of led me over to calling here. I mean, like obviously at this point we're getting 9-1, and we can see over here that we're actually doing a lot better than 9-1. So getting the right price to call on this river, and he makes a very good thin value bet with Jack 8-7-4-3. I think like in general, like you do want to go for those thin value bets. I mean, was I going to raise on this river? It's kind of close considering like the dead cards. Probably want to, but my hand is also like kind of turned face up. It's not one of those situations where you can raise the river and then like your opponent's guessing is like, oh, does he have a wheel? Like the best situation that I can have in the situation if I raise this river is like a 9-8. So that's one thing too. Like if your opponent's going to bet really, really, really thin in these situations, I mean, you can always make the case for you can always make the case for making those thin raises, but at the same time too, you got to think like when you get 3-bet, it's kind of a nightmare as well. But yeah, I think his bet is like quite good. Yeah, but just kind of looking at the hand again, like the decision point for me is more than anything, just that river call. All right, let's go find, I think, one more. All right, and looking at this hand here, you're going to think to yourself, it's like, wow, how did you misplay this hand? And sometimes like, stuff just tends to happen. But we'll go into this one first here, where the 4 is going to bring it in, the ace folds, the 9 folds, the 6 folds. We raise, hoping to get action, and we do. So the first thing here is obviously these are the up cards for the most part. And you got to think too, like the ranges are still going to be pretty wide in this situation. Like we're going to be doing some fair bit of stealing, and then probably our opponent here is going to be doing a fair bit of calling. Now, one thing, I'm not going to narrow it down too much at this point. Like this point of the hand is kind of like irrelevant. What we're going to do is we're going to look at 5th Street. So, sorry. So let's go back to 5th Street. Here on 4th Street, there is something to be said, obviously, about checking sometimes because, like, obviously, I think we have a fair bit of steals, and he calls his range a little bit stronger. I don't mind mixing it in when he checks, though. I don't mind betting. And then, again, on this board, when he checks to us, we do bet, and we get check raise. So there's a couple things here. The first thing is you have to think to yourself is like, what did I just get check raised by? The first thing here is like, we have a relatively wide range. So like 2 pair combos, that makes some sense. Some maybe like lows with flush draws. And the other thing is there's only 1 5 left in the deck. So there's not too many combos of like straights in this scenario. So one of the things I want to really look at in this spot is, should we consider 3-betting? And let's go back over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to give ourselves our board, which is the 3 of spades, the 7 of hearts, and then over here our opponent has the 4 of diamonds, the 7 of diamonds. Was it the 8 of hearts? The 8 of hearts. All right, now let's run the simulation. And again, this is another real thing. Like if you're getting gun shy in some of these situations too, I can't stress enough going back to go back and look over some of these combos. So the first thing that we're going to do in this situation is we are going to filter out and just give ourselves our exact hand. Obviously 5-5 is basically one of the combos. We're going to remove all this. Just give ourselves the 5-5 combo. 3 combos. Yeah, perfect. And he still has a very wide range in this situation. Now we got to narrow his range down too. So I'm going to do that for a second. All right, and one of the things I've decided to do here is kind of like filter out this range for the most part, because one of the things that I really, I'm kind of making assumptions after the fact, because usually when you see this check raise here against this board, like our range is relatively wide, and if you're an experienced study at a better player, like you should be having some, I would say, relatively wide check raises here in the spot. Like probably some combo draws, some high pair, like, well, I wouldn't say high pairs per se, but like probably 2 pair combos. Maybe even something like 6-6 makes some sense. So one of the things that I obviously did over here is I kind of gave him what I think those combos are. I actually missed 6-6 ironically, so we're going to add 6-6 here and filter that back in. But at first, one thing I would say is like I think this range is generous. So the one thing I'm going to do in this situation here is I don't think too much is going to change in the spot. But if you're playing against a pretty well versed stud 8 player, they might look at something like this with the traps, some like thin check raises here. Like obviously if they have some like ace 5, ace 3, ace deuce, and the reason here I'm saying like he could probably have some of these combos is I'm removing some of the suited ones as well. I think more often than not they're not going to play it this way. So if we let's go over what we think our opponent really could have in this spot. I think aces makes a little bit of sense. Ace 8 makes some sense. Ace 7's probable. Ace 6, I don't know, but let's take out, like, if we remove some of the range here, ace deuce, ace 3, probably not ace 4. Ace 5, maybe we'll use that as kind of like a point. 8-8, like, it's possible, but again, I think my opponent raises. So do they have all the combos? Not quite sure. So I think 5-6 is, like, again, probable. 4-4 is probable. 3-3 deuce deuce when we get raised, probably not. Some of the combos down here with wheels with the ace, that makes some sense. I'm not a huge fan of the 7-3. I don't think that's really a thing. And now it's looking at some of these combos as well, like draw. Can we have a draw here? Draw, there's the draw. It's just a very low combo at this point. Oh, flush draw, backdoor. Low hand. Fourth low, qualifying low. I think I'm also gonna remove some of these combos over here, just kind of based off of like what I think my opponent is actually capable of. Not that they're not capable of, but just like usually sometimes what you see those raises. Like, I don't think a lot of opponents are gonna have 7-5, 8-6, 7-6. They will have 5-6, but it's kind of a mixed bag between like raising pre-flop and calling. Like, I don't think most people have 5-4, 6-4. 6-3 is possible. 6-2 is probably not. 7-3. I can give him the ace-4 here. I'm gonna give him some combos of these just to kind of narrow it down a little bit. Deuce-3. I don't even know if deuce-3 raises here without the. I guess the deuce-3 suited makes some sense. But yeah, the thing is like we didn't get re-raised on the other street too, so a lot of the combos I think are removed. So even if we do it something like this and kind of filter this combo, we're still pushing a little bit of an equity edge. I mean, this is like somewhat close. Again, like I'm kind of cherry picking, I think, my opponent's range in this situation. But it's tough when you get like basically. I think this specific raise is really dependent on, is your opponent capable of raising really, really thin? And what I'm talking about thin, like split eights with a low draw, right? Because again, our range is like relatively wide. Our board is better, yes, but like when we get raised here by like this, does he have two pair? Because two pair should raise here. There's no question. If we go back to the other hand, like we were pushing a little bit more against an opponent who could put some thin raises in this situation, but didn't really. I don't think I've played with this player before. If I have, it hasn't been that much. And the reason being is like when we get raised in this spot, like a lot of times what this is like it's kind of like some sort of combo draw staring at 3 to a straight over here. So again, like having this combo, I think just generally I probably should go ahead and raise it to kind of like make the spoiler alert. We did call, and now 6th street is just totally irrelevant. Like if I didn't raise the previous street, I'm definitely not raising on 6th street when I just catch a total brick. If we go over here now, if he catches the deuce of spades, or sorry, we don't catch the deuce of spades. We catch the jack of hearts, and our opponent catches the deuce of spades. But now we have no low draw in this situation, and we can see now we're not pushing an equity edge. So totally irrelevant at this point. So if we go back, he bets, we call, and then on the river here, we catch another total brick. And we get bet into. Again, nothing is really going to change the situation here, even if we give ourselves the 10 of clubs and just run it out. We still have plenty of equity in the situation, but usually we're going to be up against a low. I was a little surprised here to see what we get actually called by here, or actually his hand exactly, which was 8s and deuces. Now, basically what he meant was he defended the 2-4-8, caught the 7, paired the 8, and then he did raise us. And I mean, like, generally, I think this is a really good raise against our range for what it's worth. Like, we should be having some checks on our range on 4th street, range on range. So I don't mind this, but I think I should have gone for the thin 3-bet there on 5th street. It's just one of those things where like you're kind of staring at the board thinking it's like, wow, I'm just up against a flush draw plus low, or I'm up against some sort of like case straight. And again, like it's one of these mentalities that you just have to kind of get away from, because the other problem with that is like there was 1-5 left in the deck, right? If you have like 9-9-9 here somehow and you get raised, like, I get it. You know, that those are the situations, like, you know, you're probably supposed to say, like, well, there's a lot of combos of straights. But when you have my combo, like, my combo is just obviously becomes a three bet, even against what seems to be like a relatively tighter range in that spot as well. Um, you know, if your opponent is super tight, I think you can actually make the case for calling there, kind of looking at like some of the thin value spots, like basically on Fifth Street. But again, if your opponent is capable of raising a very thin hand like this on Fifth Street in this situation, then you just should go ahead, bite the bullet, and go ahead. You know, we were definitely going to maneuver some on a later street here, depending on what our opponent caught as well. But on Sixth Street, when he catches the fourth low card and we catch a brick and our low draw is now gone, nothing really much to do. I'm going to do one more pre-flop hand as well. Let's go see that one. All right, and the last one over here is just a pre-flop scenario. We know Nathan opens the button here, and we have 5-5-7-3 in the small blind. One of the things, again, you know, I folded this hand pretty quickly, just thinking like this is a pretty obvious fold. If we go back to Omaha, oops, wrong one. If we go back to Omaha Mate over here, we can see as button raises, the 7-5-5-3 is actually quite close. It's basically like neutral EV. Now, one of the things I did say is like if we had like 6-5-5-3, I think we are calling in this situation. With most of our combos folding the worst, yeah, Badoogie, and then we're just kind of cold calling for the most part. But again, one of these spots is like when you go back and look, you know, if you are not sure, or if you think something might be close, like that Ace Queen 9-4 hand that I played, decided that 3-bet, that is a huge mistake. And I really didn't think, and this is sometimes hubris with when I'm playing Omaha High Low, like I don't have those mistakes in my pre-flop range anymore. And, you know, obviously a huge mistake on my part for doing it, but that's one of the reasons, like, I have at least the fortitude to go back and to review these spots when it's just super important and you're running bad. You know, again, like these are the spots which make you a better player, more competent, more confident as well. And, you know, just kind of like looking at it again, like I would have just thrown this hand away without really even thinking about it. But again, we're kind of seeing like it's actually a lot closer than I would have thought. Definitely would have played the double suited combo for sure. I mean, like that's just one of the things that we learned, because again, like we can see like this is basically neutral EV, and we can see over here, instead of losing 50 big blinds per 100, we're only losing 16, which means this is like a 35 big blind per 100 mistake by not playing this hand over here. Again, like one of these little nuances that we learn after using Omaha Mate and some of the other tools available to us. But yeah, it's just one of those things, you know, when you're running bad, you're running bad. But I also think just being able to do something like this gives you a little bit of calmness to like go over. It's like, okay, where can I improve? Where can I not improve? I might do one. I've been playing a lot of Badoosie as of late. Just a lot of really interesting spots that I might also go over with that in the near future. But any questions or comments, leave them below. You can always reach out to me at learnmixedgames@gmail.com. If you want a 1 hour free review of any mixed game, send it in to learnmixedgames@gmail.com. Omaha Mate, you can always use code LMG for 20% off. And if you want to use stud flop draw, some of the things that I used in stud flop draw today are still they will be in the pro version when they release that. But as of right now, if you want to use the free version, you can still go over some of the ranges and some of the stuff that I still think is super, super, super valuable. I still use that pretty frequently to like even check over my spots and again, tell them Learn Mixed Games sent you, and you should be able to get access. Yeah, again, like when you're running bad, like don't feel bad to like take some time off if you don't think you're playing good, and in the process too, don't feel bad about like checking some of your spots. Super useful, and you know, even like if you are making all the right decisions, like it just reinforces the fact that you're making those right decisions, and you can just like sooner or later everything should be turning around. All right, but until then, guys, thank you for watching. Good luck at the tables. Play well. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.